Stand by. Okay, ready to go. Hit it.
Good evening and welcome to
Okay.
good evening and welcome to the After Hours show. My name is Joe in Norway. I'll be your baker this evening. I'm joined by Ann Lee, a retired college professor and a community member at the Daily Coast. They're a member of the National Council of Independent Scholars and is a contributor to the book, The Political Economy of Art, Making the Nation of Culture. Evening, Ann.
Hey there, Joe. What's for supper?
Oh, before we get into that time of the year again, uh, I think maybe we didn't have enough of the professors. We've just been listening to Adnan Hussein's office hours for 2 hours or so. I think maybe we could, and he's based in Canada now. I thought maybe I would mention something I came across the other day. Let's see. Speaking of Canada, um, there was a letter sent, let's see, by the Middle Eastern Studies Association of North America. There was a little issue of a professor going north for a people's acknowledgement of the Gaza genocide. I'll just read you this letter. Uh, this is a letter regarding the detention at the Canadian border of Emeritus Professor Richard Falk. To the Right Honorable Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, and a number of honorables as well. We write on behalf of the Middle East Studies Association of North America, otherwise known as MESA, and its Committee on Academic Freedom to express our consternation and our outrage at the unwarranted and unjustified harassment that Richard Falk, the eminent emeritus professor of international law at Princeton University and former United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territories, was subjected to by agents of the Canadian Border Services. After arriving at Toronto Pearson International Airport from the United States on the 13th of November, 2025, Professor Falk and his wife, Professor Hilal Elver, had landed in Canada en route to Ottawa to participate in the Palestine Tribunal on Canadian responsibility on the 14th to the 15th of November. When they were detained while going through customs, a border agent took their passports, led them to a room where they were held for close to 4 hours, and Falk was interrogated at length. We object profoundly to such mistreatment of this 95-year-old world-renowned scholar and human rights advocate by the Canadian authorities. MESA was founded in 1966 to promote scholarship and teaching on the Middle East and North Africa. The preeminent organization in the field, MESA publishes the International Journal of Middle East Studies and has nearly 2,800 members worldwide. MESA is committed to ensuring academic freedom and freedom of expression, both within the region and in connection with the study of the region in North America and elsewhere. Apparently, border agents indicated that they had detained Professor Falk in order to determine whether he was a threat to Canada's national security and should be allowed to enter the country or not. As preposterous as that suggestion is, we are confident that the Canadian authorities were far more concerned about his participation in the gathering in Ottawa.
Right.
People's Tribunal on Canada's complicity in the genocide in Gaza since October 2023 and the dispossession of the Palestinian people. Specifically, the unacknowledged intent in detaining Professor Falk seems to have been to create an atmosphere of intimidation and thereby discourage and delegitimize testimonies of Palestinian suffering, criticism of Israel's treatment of the Palestinians, and the complicity therein of the United States and Canada, along with advocacy in favor of Palestinian rights. We call upon the Canadian government to issue an immediate apology to Professor Balkin and Professor Hilal Elva. We urge the government to reflect upon its role in contributing to Palestinian suffering and to categorically defend Palestinian human rights as opposed to its provisional and ambiguous support for some ill-defined notion of Palestinian statehood. Finally, we urge the government to uphold and unwaveringly support free expression and debate, even about the most pressing and contested issues of our time, the hallmark of a healthy, vibrant democracy that Canada claims to be. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. We look forward to your response. Sincerely, President Asli U. Bali, Mesa President, Professor at Yale Law School, Lori Bryan, several others. I thought that was
Yeah, it does seem like they held him up just simply to intimidate him.
yes, indeed.
Typical. But the Canada does that. I mean, with all due respect, they just they it's not their sense of rights is different than ours. In other words, my favorite example is Naomi Klein getting held up because she was bringing back a book. I can't remember what it was, but the RCMP accused her of bringing pornography into Canada. So anyway.
Anyways, on to the menu this evening.
Those 95-year-old rabble rousers, they're really a problem.
I mean, what they could do with a cane, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Wrap your knuckles. Well, I've got more grass credit. I've replaced the mushroom fixation with a winter squash fixation for the season. You all have Thanksgiving coming up. I have a visitor relative who's allergic to several things, so I've got to practice making some. We're upping the ante. Not just vegetarian this week. It's non-gluten. What else? No eggs, no gluten, no lactose, no no milk, sugar, and eggs. Oh, well, we got the sugar. We'll deal with the sugar. So I was thinking what I could do for last week's mamoul. I made the rosewater semolina mamoul that are stuffed with dates. I got a nice press this time. Oh, these came out lovely, but they're definitely not gluten-free. We got to figure out an alternative for semolina there. But this week, I've been on a kick of making flan, but I've been using eggs. This time, we're going to make a pumpkin flan with muscat or nutmeg, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon. I'm missing some alahanda or what do you call it? Allspice. And ginger somewhere. So we're gonna we're gonna puree the grass carb or the winter squash that I steamed earlier. Got coconut milk. Could use soy milk or almond milk or hot oat milk. I'm gonna try coconut milk, hoping it's not gonna be too coconutty to overwhelm the puree. And I've got mung bean starch. So we'll try, it's essentially like potato starch or cornstarch, but I'm not exactly sure with the ratio of starch that we're gonna want in this. Kids like it gelatinous. I like it a little bit looser. We'll see what we do. So I'm gonna blend this all, puree it with I'll puree it all together. I may strain it. I'm not sure if I'm gonna use a blender on a stick, and if I get it smooth enough, I won't strain it. But you can strain it through a sieve or a chinois to make it more elegant and less fibrous. Sorry, James, the other James. And then once we get that all mixed, we'll put it in a water bath inside this. Oh, since it's not a pie, it's a crustless pumpkin pie essentially, but I'll be making creme caramel style. So I'm going to caramelize some sugar. We're going to pour it in the bread pan here. Water, do the water bath, pour in the custard, and then bake it. So you won't see the end for the end of the show, but it'll take about an hour or so. But that's the plan.
Yum.
That's about it. Got some
I'm hungry.
crazy shit going on this week, I've noticed.
A busy week, crazy week, actually. Where were we? We begin at the beginning, I guess. You know, I noticed that well, the week began with cluster munitions in Ukraine. It's going to end up weirdly there anyway. Apparently, I'm just beginning with Ukraine. I could begin with somewhere else, but apparently Trump just wants to get it over with, and so he essentially is front ending. Well, the first thing that came out was the Russian proposal of 28 points or whatever it was, and essentially it was they had just sort of regurgitated the 2022 demands from the time when they thought they were taking over. They were on the on the border of Kiev or whatever, and then they got creamed and had to be driven back. The point of all of this jabbering is they're still trying to force Ukraine to give up land, essentially give up the Donbass, which is what they wanted all along. Essentially, nothing has happened. I mean, at the end, it will be kind of like freezing the land, the borders where they were. Russia pretty much gets what it wants, and the security guarantees are not yet clear, but apparently, and this is the current moment, Ukraine will get something similar to Article 5 defense. But the problem is, of course, the Russians want the Ukrainians to reduce the size of their army and a bunch of other things. And the issue is, of course, that once they can convince Ukraine to reduce the size of its army, they're going to attack again. Although, if you get a true Article 5, the NATO will actually do that. Will actually, respond. Can actually respond. And built into that is EU membership and a bunch of other things. So essentially, Russia got what it wanted. Ukraine doesn't. It sort of gets what it wants. And the whole week has been very complicated because there is a corruption scandal that's going on in Ukraine, and it's been there all along. I mean, the fact is that Zelensky is constantly, been firing people or kicking people out of the government because they are corrupt. And yes, they were corrupt before anything ever started, and that's been the issue with Ukraine. The knock on Ukraine was that it was incredibly corrupt. Well, it is incredibly corrupt. I mean, what Russia wants is to install its own puppet leader, who is also incredibly corrupt. So it's unclear whether we're going to get anything out of this. But on the American side, it seems pretty clear that Trump wants to just get it over with, because he can't use it as to stonewall the Epstein investigation. So it's pretty complicated from that point of view. On the other hand, uh, Keith Kellogg, the probably the last vestige of the Trump first administration, first term, he's the last military guy, actual real military guy that was there. It's a general. It's a former general. Anyway, he's the guy who got along with Trump the most, and he's not quite as stupid or corrupt as people like Mike Flynn at all. And he got shunted to the side to as some envoy thing, mainly because he didn't agree with what Trump was trying to do, and so they sort of shunted him to the side. Well, anyway, he's going to leave his post, or he's going to get out of government in January. So something has happened, and I would assert that it's not necessarily a good thing, but whatever, we're there. All right, so that's Ukrainian news. There was incredible, drone stuff, and the military situation is still as bad as it ever was. On the one hand, it appears as if the Russians are going to seize a little bit more territory. On the other hand, the Ukrainians have been fighting back, and they have managed to create a real problem for the infrastructure and the gasoline situation in Russia. So, it's sort of a trade-off in that instance. And then there's the usual arguing about who should get what missiles. It's pretty clear now that the United States is not going to give Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, but they're reasonable substitutes. So there's that. And then there's a bunch of other things that we shouldn't probably get too worried about. But the fact is, it's either going to be Estonia. Estonia is probably the reasonable target for Russia. The next place that is going to get invaded by Russia, assuming that this doesn't get resolved relative to Ukraine, will be Estonia. They're just going to roll right in there. Belarus is going to, and there's just going to be more fighting. So expect that in the next year or so. Okay, enough of that. The week was just weird. I mean, how many different craziness occurred? The Treasury Secretary, for some reason, claimed that border crossers, illegal immigrant border crossers, are bringing cattle with them, and that cootie infested cattle. It's actually the screwworm, which has actually infested lots of cattle on both sides of the border. So it's really stupid. It's actually, the reality is that the production is down, the market is down. There've been issues with herd size, all kinds of other things, and so all the Treasury Secretary Besant, Scotty, has only convinced us that he's really an idiot. Aside from the fact that I was mentioning the week before that he claimed that he was a soybean farmer. Well, not really true. He doesn't farm anything. He just owns the land on which he leases it to other people. So there was that. So the problem is, of course, media isn't sort of addressing the fact that he's just telling a lie. And then there's the Trump. It's a whole week of Trump stuff. signing off finally on, the votes went one way. It appeared as if there was going to be a real cascade, and you know, it turned out to be a unanimous or near unanimous vote. Representative Clay Higgins, I think, it's from Texas, I think, was the only guy who voted no on the Epstein bill. And so it passed, went to the Senate. The Senate, because of whatever rules or whatever, there was a whole side issue about getting rid of the filibuster, which they weren't going to do. The Senate's not going to do that, at least now at this current moment. And anyway, so the Senate passes it as well. I think they weaseled out of getting indicating what the exact vote was, which it would have been better to find out what the exact vote was, because it's more fascinating to see what kind of position some people on the Trump side are taking. And in the midst of that, some of those same Trumpist senators decided they would write themselves a bonus, or essentially they had the right to sue the government. In other words, to get money from the government to be compensated for the fact that for some reason, and it's very unclear that they would actually allow the government to do that, but they could get up to $500,000 just for the fact that their call logs, their telephone logs, were acquired by Jack Smith. The reality is that it is an invasion of privacy. It isn't anything, because prosecutors that's how prosecutors get what they get done, is from doing call logs. And so carving out for 6 or so of senators, some kind of threat that, well, the underlying reality of this is, yes, there is a pattern of phone interaction during January 6th that shows that certain members, well, let's just put it that way, were relaying information back and forth during the insurrection. And so once that gets revealed, you'll begin to see their position or their place in the what was a seditious act. Now, that gets us to kind of today, where about 5 Democratic senators senators and a couple of other folks decided that they would do a public service announcement or a video that sort of stated that, American troops should not be following illegal orders, and that constitutionally, because that's what America is, you could resist obeying an illegal order, which is really what happened in the case of the fleet that we have sitting outside of Venezuela. The admiral in charge of that whole operation, who also coincidentally is African American, decided that he would resign rather than essentially get himself put in a place where he might get called in for a war crime, considering that there were over 80 some odd people have now been bombed, and with very little evidence that any of these people are part of some sort of insidious gang. And there's a lot of information about that. There's really not very much evidence to support the silly things that they've been doing. And the sad thing is that certain countries like Jamaica got really screwed up in the last hurricane, and America would normally be doing relief efforts on, but no, they're just sitting there, bombing the hell out of little boats. So that's what's happening. So that's all the background against the illegal orders, the movement forward of the Epstein request for the Epstein files. Now, the problem, of course, and everyone predicted this. Clearly, everyone predicted this. It's just like if you're paying attention, it's only the people who are not paying attention who are going to get bamboozled by this. But the reality is that they're just sandbagging the operation. Um, there 30 days in 30 days material must be produced. Now, whether the material is in a condition where you could actually learn anything is another question. The reality, of course, is that the stuff has gone through enough different hands that there's going to be whistleblowers and leaks. And for example, today someone has sort of figured out that and this is by extrapolation, and whether it's real or not, we're going to find out. The 13-year-old at the time, Katie Johnson, who did have sex with Trump, is mentioned in the Epstein files. So that there's more evidence that has occurred, that it really did occur, and that she had filed a suit during was it 2020 or 2015. The issue is that Trump threatened her, and or people threatened her. People threatened her, lawyers, etc. And so they submitted they made a filing, but then they pulled it back, partially because of whatever these hidden threats were. So it's been a week of death threats. The Democratic senators who did a little video stated, these were most of them were veterans or former CIA people, the different senators and governors who have served, made more poignant by Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, because he's married to Gabby Giffords, who was shot in an assassination attempt. There are death threats going on, and it's sort of dueling death threats. Marjorie Taylor Greene claiming that she's getting death threats. Well, maybe not, because she's separating herself from Trump, and so there's all that stuff's happening. Lest you think that there's some sort of epiphany that's going on with Marjorie Taylor Greene, it hasn't. It just hasn't. She can claim all she wants. I mean, she does identify. She got in front with the Epstein victims. She's been very clear about that. But there's a whole bunch of other things that are not clear, and essentially she's sanitizing her record, although it's pretty deep there. Anybody running against her has got plenty to work with. But she's probably going to run for either governor of Georgia or, as some people have opined, running for president. Well, that dog is not going to hunt. So anyway, sandbagging is occurring. The cover-up is going on. Pamela Bondi was fully embarrassed when somebody, sort of brought up the fact that she, was essentially lying about how much material was or is going to be available, and the excuse, and it's an excuse because Trump can release the material at any time. This is all delaying. Everything has been a delaying tactic. So we've been looking at about a year of delaying tactics. And we're going to look at even more delaying tactics, despite the 30-day, sort of law, when the law demands that the material be released. Now, what shape it's going to be in is a wholly different thing. And as I pointed out earlier in the week, is that, we're going to dip into the strategic auto pen ink reserves, because there's just going to be all this redacting of material. It's just going to look ugly. Needless to say, that happened during the first term, right? Recall, there was all this material that was supposed to be available. There was so much redaction that it wasn't very useful during the impeachment in the first term. But, and of course, as I pointed out, Trump apparently can classify things with his mind or declassify things by just thinking about it. So there's going to be some of that as well. Trump claimed that he tried to essentially get ahead of this, uh, but he really can't get ahead of it because there's this whole thing. I mean, it can be released at any time, but he's not going to release it. The federal government's not going to release it. The Department of Justice is not going to release it. And it's we're back to Watergate. Essentially, we're we have the same kinds of issues with refusals to release information. Some people, what will be interesting is whether Pam Bondi can get ahead of the whole business and have an actual career rather than this sort of horrible black mark of a career. Is that she'll resign and whatever, and then I guess Todd Blanche will become the attorney general. It's just silly that this insanity happened in the first term. Recall that what's he's our current ambassador to NATO, I think, or something. What's his name? The guy, the very large person. He's a former football player at Iowa. The one who had the business for people who are males who are well endowed, special toilets for them. That was his whole, one of his little scams. And so anyway, he's an ambassador now. So anyway, he's going to come back in that particular context. And that happened during the first term. Recall that he was made an assistant. He was made acting attorney general, but no one in their right mind was going to approve his becoming attorney general. Some people just forget about all this craziness that Trump has created, and that doesn't even go to the thing that happened today, where Trump threatened to execute these same senators because because they were insisting that the military has a right. Members of the military have a right to resist, following illegal orders. But Trump interprets that as either insubordination or sedition. And, he's brought up sedition. Well, I think that if you're going to call for sedition, Mike Johnson is clearly was seditious on January 6th, and now he's the Speaker of the House, and he's also part of this sort of sandbagging operation. So there's that. Trump called. Trump just has been defaulting to his normal misogyny by telling one reporter on Air Force One during a sort of gaggle that she should. The expression was "quiet, quiet piggy," and the thing is, this person has no. There's no thing about her that would make one even suggest that she was corpulent or porcine or whatever. And so it's just sexist crap. And Trump is very, just does that. And it just spontaneously erupts. And so he's had a couple of these incidents where, he blew up at a woman. What's her name? Last name is Bruce, I think. Mary Bruce is a veteran White House reporter, and she just asked a question about the Epstein files, and during this little thing where Trump and Mohammed bin Salman are cozying up, and they brought him to dinner, et cetera, et cetera. Well, anyway, Trump blew up during this little interchange and yelled at her and accused her of having a bad tone and a bad attitude, and because she was from ABC. And he didn't mention, although he should have, he probably would have, the $16 million judgment he got from his suing ABC News over George Stephanopoulos, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of stuff's happening. This was a busy, busy week of stupid things.
What
Anyway,
was Lindsey Graham all excited about being able to sue the government?
oh well, yeah, Lindsey Graham. He was excited that this was that thing that because his call logs were subpoenaed by Jack Smith. Uh, Smith had a right to do it. Uh, they're just call logs. If there was something related to just the police, the regular local police, they could subpoena call logs. So call logs aren't a big deal on the one hand. On the other hand, you can see the pattern of interchanges um, that occurred on January 6th, and you can actually see, who was ferrying material to whom, and all of the people who are involved, all these GOP senators. It's already been described, and all the, the House and Senate reporting, and et cetera, et cetera. We sort of know that a bunch of senators actually were part of this, part of the coup. I mean, not they were part of it in the sense that they were on the floor doing stuff and hurting people, but the fact is there was a lot of interchange going on about the whole issue of trying to put in, fake electors, uh, create a conflict in votes so it would go back to the state, which is part of the sedition plot, essentially, and the John Eastman plan, as it were, the end run, as Navarro referred to it, to be able to negate, essentially nullify the 2020 election by having it thrown, as mentioned by at least one person, I think it's Ted Cruz, that this would resemble the 1877 compromise from the Tilden Hayes election, which ended Reconstruction and took troops out of the South and essentially brought back Jim Crow, or allowed a situation where everything that had gone forward in Reconstruction was now going to get rolled back. And so essentially, we're doing this again because, of course, Project 2025 is an attack on among many other things that it does, is it attacks the civil rights legislation from the 60s. And so they just want to roll that back because what that did was eliminate Jim Crow. And again, there have been several waves of Jim Crow, but so we're on to, as Reverend Barber says, the third Reconstruction. Stuff has to happen, and it's sort of not happening because there are all these crazy people. Needless to say, Trump is not mentioned just once in the Epstein files. He's mentioned over 1,600 times, 1,600 times in the Epstein files. And I would like to think that the 1,000 FBI agents who pored over the 300,000 pages of the Epstein files to find instances where Trump was mentioned, that's going to be part of the next impeachment. So three's a charm. There's probably going to be an impeachment. It won't pass. Well, it could pass, and it could be actually quite decisive after the election next year. So it's all about timing. Assuming that the Democrats take control again back because of all those shenanigans that are going on, probably there's going to be another impeachment. And yes, it's going to take up a lot of time and a lot of energy and money and stuff like that. But I mean, Trump, he's as they say, a disabled canard or a lame duck, and he doesn't care anymore. He just says and does crazy things. And there is some evidence, of course, that he is that dementia set in, et cetera, et cetera. But that has yet to be proven. On the other hand, he said bombs go boom 2 days ago, which I think if I expect the president of the United States to go to talk about bombing Iran more than just saying bombs go boom. But so,
What
needless to
was that
say,
in relation to?
Oh, he was talking during a speech to what was it? Is this the one with the I can't remember. There's a one where he was in front of a Saudi investor audience, and another where he was in front of a McDonald's hamburger franchisees. And anyway, he was just referring to the bombing attack on the bunker busting attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. And Trump went through this little riff about, well, it's way up in the air and blah, 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 and the bombs go boom. And I'm going, yeah, well, it's really articulate. Needless to say,
Speaking of
he's been,
articulate, have you read any of those emails? Holy crap. It was, I mean,
oh, yeah.
aside from the crime of pedophilia, the crime against the English language is just outrageous.
Yeah,
Jeez.
there's some really crazy crap. Epstein, well, he's just being Epstein, and it covered all kinds of stuff. Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary and president of Harvard, essentially withdrew from all of his public life attachments and things because he sort of discovered what a weasel he was and still talking to Epstein. So that happened this week. Um, uh, and the Epstein release materials release is a continuing cover up. It could have been released months ago, but Trump is essentially doing a cover up, and he's being enabled, of course, by an entire political party, and which takes us away from dealing with other things. I mean, people are. I, I mean, the fact that 600,000 people have already died, and this is a ProPublica did a thing on this from the USAID eliminating USAID program AID programs. 2/3 or 1/3 of that is children. I mean, it's more than 500,000 people have been killed from stupid American policies or chaos done by Doge and Musk. So there's that. It's been a long week. All kinds of stuff happened.
Well, I
So
screwed
we
up the
had,
sugar. I just realized that I used my canning sugar, which has pectin and all sorts of things. So we're just doing the pudding. So we've got pumpkin pudding in an
oh,
hour. Should steam in the water bath for about an hour.
so you're not going to get a kind of consistency of
Mm.
flan, right?
It should be. Or
Oh,
Jello. Flan or Jello. We'll see how much. It depends on how much starch the liquid that I used. So it's a test. I put a little heavy-handed on the starch just to see what the texture might be like if it's a little bit more,
hmm
a little less delicate. We'll see.
still hungry. Oh yeah, and they buried Dick Cheney, and it was just notable that uh, uh, Trump and Vance were not invited to Dick Cheney's funeral, which is there's a precedent for that. Um, I watched part of the services. It was, typical, his grandkids and his kids. They told funny stories. Some people told funny stories. Whatever. It made you think that a war criminal could be a real human being, but we have to recall, that he shot a guy in the face and never was prosecuted for it. So, um,
And is guilty of murder of upwards of several million people, possibly.
At
At
least at
least
least a
at
million
least a million.
at least a million. And I
He's
mean
had a
in
long
terms of
career.
it's I mean they just don't want to it's people have to come to grips with this. I mean killing people, 80 people with a lot of heavy duty ordnance. That's just, the beginning. It's going to get
Mhm.
worse before it
Mm.
gets better. So anyway, there was that.
Just going back to scumbags, Larry Summers. Uh, I recall Yanis Varoufakis
Mm,
recalling his meeting during the Greek financial crisis.
mhm.
One of his meetings with Sumner. Here I'm quoting from his book. Finally, after agreeing to our next steps, and before the combined effects of fatigue and alcohol forced us to call it a night, they were hanging out at the hotel bar or something like that. Summers looked at me intensely and asked a question so well rehearsed that I suspected he had used it to test others before me. Quote, there are two kinds of politicians, he said, insiders and outsiders. The outsiders prioritize their freedom to speak, their version of the truth. The price of their freedom is that they are ignored by the insiders who make the important decisions. The insiders, for their part, follow a sacrosanct rule: never turn against other insiders and never talk to outsiders about what insiders say or do. Their reward? Access to inside information and a chance, though no guarantee, of influencing powerful people and outcomes. With that, Summers arrived at his question. So, Giannis, he said, which of the two are you?
Oh man. Yeah, it sounds too rehearsed. Summers is filled. Well, if you read the emails, the Epstein emails,
Mhm.
Summers is really out there. I mean, there's this one thing where he mentioned it in error, but I think he did the error so that he wouldn't be, even in an email, be fully quoted. He just talked about things that were just odd, relative to being president of Harvard and stuff. That uh, I mean, he talked like a president, a former president or a president of a university would talk, but it's all this kind of, uh, you know, gaslight. It baffle gab. It's just it's amazing how they talk. I mean, you sort of lose all humanity when or get to that level of stuff. But to be able to reproduce it in an email is even scarier, I suppose. Um, let's see. Well, yeah. How far along are we now?
I
Oh,
think we're
well,
at the schedule.
we're up to schedule time. Let's see if I can remember anything. Well, Susanna has reminded me that there is something on Saturday. I just can't remember what it is.
I have
Uh,
it right here. Just one moment. Let me bring it up. Saturday Night Theater. Susanna's going to be showing the 1957 smash hit Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution, starring
all right.
Charles Laughton, Tyrone Power, Marlena Dietrich, and Elsa Lanchester. Sorry, directed by the great Billy Wilder.
It's a good movie. It's an excellent movie. I mean, there's several in the 50s really good, courtroom drama movies that are, they're, I mean, some of it is because of Hitchcock doing, the Leopold and Loeb murders and stuff like that. So, yeah, 7 o'clock on Saturday, uh, two
But
o'clock
this,
on Sunday. I'm doing this all out
oh
of
wait,
order.
oh Jesus, Lane's gonna get outraged. We gotta rewind the clock here, all the way to just following us, John. Night Gallery this evening, following an after
All
hour
right,
show. What is it?
John,
Yeah.
what's Night Gallery tonight?
Well, before I get to that, I just wanted to note that someone who was invited to Dick Cheney's funeral and did show up was Rachel Maddow.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
I love the
I love
Why did
glasses.
liberal
why did she do that? It's
because
weird.
she's part of the power structure.
I guess, or she's a fellow
Right.
fly fisherman or something, fisherwoman, whatever.
I think she likes shotgun.
No, I think she likes fly fishing.
Must be the
She's
fly
actually a
fishing.
fly. She does fly fishing, I think. So anyway,
Maybe she
It's a small
became good
club.
buddies. Maybe she became good buddies with Liz Cheney.
probably, or something like that. That's very
Mm,
weird. I didn't recall that mentioning anything
Yeah, I
like
just saw a
that.
picture of her at the
Oh,
funeral.
weird. It was a sort of a weird motley crew, right? You know, Biden was there with his wife. Uh, G.W. Bush was there. And etc. Um, Strange combination of people.
And
Anyway,
the papers did their best to whitewash his career.
oh God,
Oh,
yes,
yes,
it's just
absolutely.
amazing. It's just the old Washington mainstream media sort of kicked in. Everyone got real sentimental and et cetera, et cetera. Very scary, actually. But
Yeah, I mean, whenever
so,
I think of Dick Cheney, I get sentimental.
all right, I think about Halliburton and military getting electrocuted and poorly built Halliburton
Showers.
facilities in Iraq. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
think about.
Soldiers being electrocuted while they showered.
Yeah.
Nice. But they got
Um,
cost plus for the building those showers, so don't worry.
oh, indeed, indeed. So, John,
Yeah.
what's on Night Gallery tonight?
Well, tonight we have an episode called Lindemann's Catch, and it's about a fisherman. He's not too happy. He's a little bitter, and but he catches something that really changes his outlook on things. Um, and I won't tell you any more than that. It stars Stuart Whitman,
Ah,
Jack, yeah, and a lot of credits for him. Jack Aronson and Harry Towns.
hmm,
Oh, while you're at it,
nice.
maybe you could cover Star Trek. But I think Harsh might have a question about Wesley. Harsh's hand is up. Is that an
Uh,
old hand, Harsh, or is that a new one?
it's a new hand. So it's about actually. So I've been listening to Jeremy Scahill actually, Dropside News.
Mhm.
I think he came on MR and also the Dropside channel as well.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And he mentioned that UN did something uh, pretty drastic. They
Mhm.
sort of gave the US president kind of power to sort of split Gaza.
Oh, right.
That one.
Yes.
Um, what's the game plan? I'm not entirely sure what's because and so a couple of things, right? Because I thought UN was sort of pushing back on this crap. What
It's the
changed?
Well,
first. It's the first time they've done this.
Right.
They're going to create a new international force that's apparently led by the U.S. or Trump in particular, which will amount to hiring mercenary forces because
it's a
no,
yeah, it's a boondoggle for Eric Prince, whatever, for contractors. Yep.
But what changed? I thought
It's
like,
Halliburton. It's Halliburton again.
oh, is it? Yeah, I thought they were pushing back on that, but I don't know what changed. But
Well,
it's a
my
complete
understanding it,
capitulation.
yeah, it's more capitulation. It's and a lot of it is just about power and money. Um,
mm.
uh, that's what I would think is going on. A lot of influence peddling.
Namely that the UN has no power or money, and we've seen where international law exists at the moment.
Yeah, because that's what I was about to ask. Don't they have like a UN peace force or something? That was like one of the solutions, right?
Israel refuses to allow any peacekeepers,
Right.
so something's changed in between prior to October 7th to
Yep.
to now.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
the global order is not quite as what it used to be. It's unfortunate.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't mean to say that there aren't peacekeeping forces out there. It's just that they're not being applied in the places where they're really needed.
So what's the point of UN then? Because they cannot manage. So let's say if you have multipolar powers, right? So like you have China on one side, US on the other side. Basically, these two can drive whatever they want to do in their hemisphere, right? Nobody's
Well,
going to
yeah,
stop them, right?
well, they've been doing that for a while, and it's turning the UN into the League of Nations essentially, which
Mhm.
is it's sad, and the problem is that the large countries are kind of just letting it happen. No one's pushing back on this for whatever reason. I mean, in some cases during the Cold War, Russia had a lot more power. But it's all gotten diffused. Let's put it that way. And with Trump de-emphasizing all this stuff, whatever America First idiocy is undercutting the ability to have an internationally reinforced world order for all the usual reasons. So that's
So
where we are.
so so let's say if Kamala Harris were president, Democrats would have been in power, for example. How do you see would this have ended? Like would it be something
Well,
similar? Would it be different?
um, probably international peacekeepers. It would look more like Clinton in the Balkans.
Hmm.
It'd have that same kind of flavor to it because that's kind of the centrist democratic position on a lot of these things. So it would look a lot more like what Clinton was trying to do in Yugoslavia. So,
But they have a policy of appeasing Israel, right? And they how would they have crossed that thing?
well, I'm sure that we would have insisted. If we have the leverage. We just have to decide to do it, and the United States is not in a position to do that. It's stepped farther in the other direction because um, it serves Trump's purposes. He makes more money. This whole Abraham Accord thing was just a deal to make more money for Trump. Um, it's just sad, but that's where we are right now.
Cool.
The corruption is just right in front. It's not all hidden like it used to be, and and it's getting uglier because of, for example, Trump and the World Cup, which is going to be problematic relative to Trump and the Olympics. So just stupid stuff is happening.
Thanks.
We're just in a bad period. I mean, it just that's where we are. I mean, it's not going to change until Trump leaves, or until Trump leaves and there's a reasonable government in its place.
Powerful will
We're
do what they want, and the weak will suffer what they must, as the saying
right.
goes.
I mean, we're going to have some massive, bad stuff's going to happen. There's going to be a famine probably, or some sort of other thing is going to be there, and we won't really care too much about it because it's not close to us. Um, we're on the verge of a recession. There already is a recession in multiple places. Um, it's just, I mean, it sounds like doom, but it's not really doom. It's just, we're in this very strange cycle where, for whatever ignorant reasons, certain, people have gotten into power. It's just terrible. So
Yeah.
anyway, back to the
Oh,
schedule.
speaking of the Democratic callback, nice hat, man.
Oh yes, well,
Kamala.
it's my contributions to my political contributions.
So on Sunday we have Adnan is doing his struggle session number 6 with Nardine Kiswani, Sina Rahamni, Henry Hakamaki. Anybody
And
heard of that
yes,
feller? Mehmet
Henry,
Ali Arslan and our nice kind host, Adnan Hussein.
So that's at 3:00 on Sunday.
Yep.
And 2:00 on Saturday and Sundays is weekly marks if I can wake up. And then there's Star
5
Trek.
o'clock.
John, 5
5
o'clock.
5 o'clock on Sunday, Eastern time. We do have an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation that is called The Price. And the Enterprise hosts negotiations for control of a stable wormhole.
Ah,
So a stable wormhole, that's very valuable because, you can save a lot of time and energy. You just go in one end and come out the other, which is really far away. And Counselor Troy has a hot and heavy relationship in this one. And for Harsh, we have an extended scene where Dr. Crusher and Counselor Troy are in tight-fitting outfits doing all sorts of stretches. I think
I
you call
remember
them
this episode.
leotards. Yes,
Jazzercise, 25th century style.
exactly.
23rd? What century are we?
24th, I
24th.
believe.
24.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
All righty. Well,
Lane, are we going to have music after that?
is Lane here? I don't think he's here.
Oh, Lane may not be here. All righty. Well, we're going to try and do better next week. The bottom of
Night
the
on.
hour is night gallery.
Thanks, Ann and Joe.
Thank you,
Ann,
everyone.
Did you cut